The universe had been silent for as long as anyone could remember. Every civilization across the 17 known galaxies believed they understood the rules of existence. The strong survived, the weak perished, and nobody, absolutely nobody, answered distress calls from dying worlds. Commander Vexala of the Korath Empire stood on the observation deck of her massive warship, the Eternal Shadow. Her 4 eyes scanned the holographic display floating before her. The ship carried 3,000 soldiers, enough firepower to destroy small moons, and technology that lesser species could not even dream about. The Korath had ruled this sector of space for 12,000 years. They had crushed rebellions, enslaved dozens of species, and built an empire on fear and strength. Today was supposed to be a simple patrol mission near the outer rim of charted space. Nothing interesting ever happened in this region. The stars here were old and dying. The planets were barren. Most spacefaring civilizations avoided this area because there was nothing worth taking. Then the signal came. At first, the communication officer thought it was a malfunction in the systems. The signal was weak, barely detectable, broadcasting on frequencies so primitive that the ship's advanced computers almost ignored it completely. But when they cleaned up the transmission, the message became clear. It was a distress call. "Commander," the communication officer said, his voice filled with confusion. "The signal is coming from the 3rd planet of an unnamed yellow star. Our databases show no record of intelligent life in that system." Vexala turned her attention to the screen. The planet appeared on display. A small blue and green world covered in clouds and water. It looked peaceful from this distance, insignificant. The kind of planet that empires like hers stepped on without noticing. "What does the message say?" she asked. The officer hesitated. "It is strange, Commander. The message contains mathematical sequences, chemical formulas, and what appears to be a map showing their location. They are actively inviting contact." "Inviting contact?" Vexala laughed, and her crew joined her. The sound echoed through the bridge like thunder. "Do these creatures not understand how the universe works? Broadcasting your location is suicide. Every predator within range will come running." She was right. Of course. In the known universe, civilizations hid. They buried themselves deep underground, cloaked their signals, and prayed that nothing found them. The galaxy was filled with species that consumed others, empires that harvested planets for resources, and ancient machines that destroyed anything they detected. Sending a signal into the void was like screaming in a forest full of wolves. Yet these creatures had done exactly that. "How long has this signal been broadcasting?" Vexala asked. Based on the technology level and signal decay, approximately 60 of their planetary rotations. They call them years. 60 years. This civilization had been screaming into the darkness for 60 years, and somehow they were still alive. Either they were incredibly lucky, or there was something about this system that kept predators away. Vexala made her decision quickly. "Set a course. We will investigate." The Eternal Shadow changed direction, its massive engines burning bright against the blackness of space. As they traveled, Vexala ordered her science team to gather every piece of information they could about this unknown world. What they found was fascinating. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were carbon-based life forms, roughly bipedal, with only 2 eyes and fragile bodies that could be killed by temperature changes, pressure variations, or simple diseases. By every measurement the Korath used, humans were weak. Their lifespans were pathetically short. Their planet had hostile weather, unstable geology, and predators that should have wiped them out millions of years ago. And yet they had survived. More than survived, actually. In just a few thousand years, these fragile creatures had gone from living in caves to splitting atoms and sending machines to other planets in their system. The speed of their technological development was abnormal. Most species took millions of years to reach this point. Humans had done it in the blink of a cosmic eye. Interesting, Vexala muttered as she reviewed the data. But speed means nothing without strength. Let us see how they react when true power arrives at their doorstep. The journey took 3 standard cycles. When the eternal shadow finally entered the human star system, alarms began ringing across the ship. "Commander," the tactical officer shouted, "we are detecting multiple objects approaching our position, small craft, extremely primitive propulsion systems. They appear to be communication satellites and observation probes." Vexala smiled. "They know we are here. Good. Prepare the communication array. Let us introduce ourselves." What happened next would become legendary throughout the known universe. The humans responded to their hail within moments. The face that appeared on screen belonged to a female human with dark hair and tired eyes. She wore some kind of uniform covered in patches and symbols. Behind her, dozens of other humans rushed around, their faces showing a mixture of fear and excitement. "This is Director Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Agency," the human said. Her voice was steady despite the obvious tension. "We have been waiting for this moment for a very long time. On behalf of all humanity, welcome to our solar system." Vexala leaned forward. "You have been waiting? You sent a signal into space knowing what might answer, and you were waiting?" "Yes," Director Chen replied simply. "We knew the risks. We sent the message anyway." "Why?" There was a pause. The human seemed to be choosing her words carefully. "Because we needed to know if we were alone. We needed to know if there was something more out there. The universe is vast and beautiful, and the thought of being the only ones to witness it, that was unbearable." Vexala did not understand this logic. "You risked your entire species for curiosity?" "Not just curiosity," Chen said. "Hope. We hoped that whoever found us might become our friends, our partners in exploring the cosmos." The bridge of the eternal shadow fell silent. Every Korath officer stared at their screens in disbelief. In all their thousands of years of conquest, no species had ever greeted them with hope. They had seen fear, hatred, desperate attempts at negotiation, but never this calm acceptance, this genuine desire for friendship. "You are either very brave or very foolish," Vexala finally said. Director Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that made Vexala uncomfortable. "We have been called both, many times throughout our history. But here is something you should understand about humans, Commander. We do not give up. We do not hide. When the universe seems dark and empty, we light fires and search for others to share the warmth." The words hung in the air between them, traveling across the void of space through signals and satellites. Vexala felt something she had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. She had come here expecting to find prey. Instead, she had found something else entirely, a species that should have been destroyed by its own weaknesses, yet somehow thrived. A civilization that threw itself into danger with nothing but hope as armor. "Commander," her tactical officer whispered, "what are your orders?" Vexala did not answer immediately. She watched Director Chen on the screen, this small, fragile creature who stood before a Korath warship without begging for mercy. The human met her gaze without flinching. In that moment, something changed. "Stand down," Vexala said quietly. Her crew gasped in shock. "Lower our weapons. We will talk with these humans, learn more about them." The tactical officer looked like he might faint. "Commander, our protocol clearly states—" "I am aware of our protocol," Vexala interrupted. "But I am also aware that in 12,000 years of conquest, we have never encountered anything like this. These creatures are unique. Perhaps they deserve a chance to prove what they truly are." On the screen, Director Chen's expression shifted. The smile grew wider, warmer. "Thank you, Commander. I promise you this will be the beginning of something extraordinary." Vexala was not sure what to believe, but as she watched the blue planet turning slowly in the darkness, she could not shake the feeling that she was standing at the edge of history. The Korath Empire had destroyed countless worlds, ended countless species. Perhaps it was time to try something different. Word of the encounter spread quickly. The Eternal Shadow's message to Korath High Command was intercepted by dozens of listening posts across the galaxy. Within days, every major power knew about the strange little world called Earth and its even stranger inhabitants. The humans who sent messages into the void, the humans who hoped instead of feared, the humans who smiled at warships. And across the galaxy, for the first time in recorded history, civilizations began to wonder. Perhaps they had been wrong about how the universe worked. Perhaps there was another way to exist among the stars. The humans had done what no superweapon, no fleet, no empire had ever accomplished. They had made the universe question itself, and this was only the beginning. 6 months passed since the Eternal Shadow entered Earth's orbit. In that time, more ships arrived. First came the Korath diplomatic vessels, sent by the Emperor himself to study this curious species. Then came vessels from other civilizations, drawn by rumors and recordings of that first conversation. The Velnari came first. They were tall, thin beings with skin like polished silver, and minds focused entirely on trade and profit. They had heard about Earth's resources and hoped to establish commercial agreements before anyone else. Next were the Torgan. Massive creatures covered in thick scales, they resembled Earth's ancient dinosaurs and communicated through deep rumbling sounds that shook the ground. They were warriors, respected across the galaxy for their honor and combat skills. They came to see if humans were truly as fearless as the reports claimed. The Sindari arrived last. They were mysterious beings of living light who existed partially in dimensions humans could not perceive. Ancient beyond measure, they observed more than they participated, and their interest in any species was rare. Earth had never been so crowded with alien visitors. Director Sarah Chen had not slept properly in weeks. She had become the unofficial voice of humanity in these early days of contact. Every morning brought new meetings, new negotiations, new crises to manage. Her hair had grown gray in patches. Her hands sometimes shook from exhaustion, but she never stopped smiling. "You should rest," Commander Vexala said during one of their increasingly frequent conversations. The Korath commander had remained in orbit, fascinated by humanity in a way she could not explain. "Your body is breaking down. I can see it." Chen laughed softly. "Sleep can wait. This is too important." "Why do you push yourself so hard? Your leaders could send others to handle these matters." Chen considered the question. Outside her window, she could see the night sky filled with alien vessels. Ships from civilizations that had existed for millions of years, hovering above a planet that had only discovered fire a cosmic moment ago. Because this is what humans do. When something matters, we throw ourselves into it completely. We break ourselves against impossible tasks until we either fail or succeed. And if you fail, then we get up and try again. Vexala shook her head slowly. "My people have studied countless species. None of them think the way you do. Most beings are motivated by survival, reproduction, accumulation of resources. But humans seem motivated by something else, something we cannot identify." "Purpose," Chen said simply. "We need to feel like our lives mean something, like we are part of something bigger than ourselves." Before Vexala could respond, an alarm began ringing. Chen's communication device erupted with urgent messages. Something was wrong. Across the solar system, sensors detected a massive energy signature. Something huge was approaching, something that made every alien vessel suddenly activate their defensive systems. The Devourer had arrived. Chen learned about Devourers in the frantic minutes that followed. They were ancient machines, remnants of a civilization that had died billions of years ago. Their creators had long since turned to dust, but the Devourers continued their original programming. They traveled through space, consuming everything in their path: planets, stars, entire systems. They broke down matter into raw energy to fuel their endless journey through the cosmos. One such machine had detected Earth's signals. It had come to feed. "All vessels must evacuate immediately," the Velnari commander announced over the emergency channel. "Nothing can stop a Devourer. All we can do is run." Chen watched her screens fill with panicked communications. Alien ships were already beginning to leave orbit. 12,000 years of Korath military might, the Torgun's legendary warriors, the Velnari's advanced technology. None of it mattered. They were all preparing to flee. "How long until it reaches Earth?" she asked quietly. 17 hours, her assistant replied. His face was pale with terror. "Director, we need to begin evacuation procedures. The aliens have offered to take as many humans as their ships can carry." "How many would that be?" "A few 100,000 at most." Earth's population was over 10 billion. A few 100,000 was nothing, a drop of water in an ocean. Chen closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter in Tokyo, her elderly parents in Beijing, the billions of strangers she had never met but fought to represent. She thought about the message humanity had sent into space, full of hope and wonder and the desire to connect. Then she opened her eyes and made a decision. "Get me every scientist, engineer, and military commander we have. Now." What happened next would be recorded in the histories of 100 civilizations. While alien vessels fled, humans gathered. In labs and bunkers and hastily constructed command centers, Earth's greatest minds came together. They shared data freely, ignoring borders and old rivalries. Chinese researchers worked alongside American engineers. Russian physicists collaborated with Indian programmers. Nationalities that had threatened each other with nuclear weapons now worked as one. They had 17 hours to do the impossible. Commander Vexala remained in orbit. She told her crew she stayed to observe, to record humanity's final moments for the Korath archives. But truthfully, she could not bring herself to leave. She watched the blue planet spinning below and felt something she had never experienced before: admiration. The humans were not running. They were not begging for rescue. They were fighting. Against a machine that had destroyed countless worlds, against odds that any rational species would accept as hopeless, they were fighting. Reports came in throughout the day. Humans had launched every nuclear weapon in their arsenal toward the Devourer. The machine absorbed them without slowing. They redirected satellites to fire concentrated solar energy at the target. The Devourer converted it into fuel. They crashed space stations into its path. It barely noticed. Nothing worked. But they kept trying. With 4 hours remaining, Director Chen made a broadcast to every vessel still in range. Her voice was hoarse from talking, her eyes red from crying, but her words were clear. "To all civilizations listening," she said, "we are not asking for your help. We know you believe this is hopeless. Maybe you are right. But before you go, we want you to understand something about humanity." She paused, gathering her strength. "We are a young species. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other, destroyed parts of our own world, wasted centuries on pointless conflicts. We are not perfect. We are not special. We are just humans. But we have one quality that we believe matters more than anything else. We never give up. When faced with darkness, we light candles. When faced with death, we plant trees. When everything tells us to surrender, we stand up and fight. In a few hours, our planet may be destroyed. Our species may end. But we will not go quietly. We will not accept defeat while there is still breath in our lungs. And if any of you ever remember us, remember this. Humans faced the impossible and chose to try anyway. The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the communication channels. Then, something unexpected happened. The Torgan commander's voice broke through the quiet. My people have always respected courage. These humans have more courage than any species we have ever encountered. We will stay. We will fight alongside them. One by one, other ships announced the same. The Velnari, calculating that any species this determined might be worth investing in. The Sindari, speaking for the first time in centuries, declaring that they would not allow such fascinating beings to be extinguished. Even Vexala found herself giving orders she never imagined. All Korath vessels, hold position. We stand with the humans. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. The combined firepower of every ship in orbit could not scratch a devourer. But they stayed anyway. Inspired by creatures they had initially dismissed as primitive and weak. In the final hour, a young human engineer named Marcus Wong made a discovery. Working with the data the aliens had shared, he found a pattern in the Devourer's energy absorption, a tiny flaw in its design, a frequency that it could not process properly. There was no time to build a proper weapon, no time to test the theory. Marcus transmitted his findings to every vessel and suggested the craziest plan anyone had ever heard. Channel all their weapons through a modified frequency converter. Fire everything at once at the exact same moment. Create a burst of energy so chaotic, so unpredictable, that the ancient machine would not be able to adapt. It should not have worked. The math said it had less than a 1% chance of success. But humans had never been good at accepting what should not work. Every ship in orbit, alien and human alike, synchronized their weapons. In mission control, Director Chen held her breath. In the eternal shadow, Commander Vexala gripped her chair until her claws drew blood. They fired. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Then the Devourer shattered. The explosion lit up the solar system like a second sun. Pieces of the ancient machine scattered across space, finally silent after billions of years of consuming and destroying. It was dead. Gone. Earth was saved. Chen collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. Around her, her team was screaming, hugging, crying with joy. Across the planet, billions of humans looked up at the sky and celebrated. But the true celebration was happening in orbit. Alien commanders stared at their screens in disbelief. They had just witnessed the impossible. A primitive species with primitive technology had done what no one else could. They had not done it alone, but they had led the way. They had inspired others to stay and fight. Vexala's voice was barely a whisper when she spoke. In 12,000 years of Korath history, we have never seen anything like this. These humans, they changed everything. She was right. The destruction of the Devourer sent shockwaves through the galaxy. A species that had only achieved space travel in the last century had led a coalition to defeat an enemy considered unstoppable. The message was clear. Humans were not prey. They were not to be ignored. They were something entirely new. And the universe would never be the same. 10 years had passed since the day humanity killed a god. That was what some species called the Devourer. A god of destruction, an unstoppable force of nature. And a small blue planet had stopped it with determination, creativity, and a refusal to accept the impossible. The galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Director Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of humanity's first interstellar starship, the Unity. Behind her, crew members from 12 different species worked together, their voices filling the air with a mixture of languages and translator beeps. The ship was heading toward a system called Keshar Prime, where a young civilization was facing extinction from a dying star. They had sent an SOS. In the old days, before humanity's first contact, no one would have answered. Civilizations did not help each other. Resources were limited. Every species fought for survival alone. But humans had changed that. After the Devourer was destroyed, something remarkable happened. The coalition that had formed around Earth did not dissolve. Instead, it grew. Species that had been enemies for centuries began talking. Borders that had been closed for millennia started to open. The humans, with their endless optimism and irritating habit of believing anything was possible, pushed and prodded and convinced. They established the Galactic Council, a governing body where every species had a voice. They created the Response Fleet, ships dedicated to answering distress calls anywhere in known space. They started the exchange program, allowing young beings from different worlds to study and live together. Not everyone was happy, of course. Some species saw humanity's influence as a threat. Some believed the old ways were better, that compassion was weakness and cooperation was foolish. There had been conflicts, setbacks, moments when the whole experiment seemed about to collapse. But the humans kept going. They always kept going. Chen smiled at the memory. She was 83 years old now, her body showing every year of the struggle. Her hair was completely white. Her joints ached constantly. The doctors said she should retire, rest, let younger people carry the burden. She politely ignored them. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The door opened to reveal a familiar figure. Commander Vex Allah entered, her 4 eyes scanning the room with the efficiency of someone who had spent a lifetime assessing threats. The Korath warrior had changed over the years. The hard edges had softened. She smiled more often. "The council meeting is about to begin," Vex Allah said. "They are waiting for you." "Let them wait a moment longer." Chen gestured toward the stars. "When I was young, I used to look up at the sky and dream about what might be out there. I never imagined I would actually see it." Vex Allah moved to stand beside her old friend. "Do you regret sending that signal? The one that started everything?" "Not for a second." Chen's voice was firm, despite her age. "Even knowing everything that would come, all the struggles and sacrifices, I would do it again without hesitation." "Why?" Chen considered the question carefully. "Because isolation is death, Vex Allah. Not just for individuals, but for entire species. When we hide, when we refuse to connect with others, we stop growing. We become stagnant. Eventually, we fade away." She turned to face her friend directly. Humans understood this instinctively. We are social creatures. We need each other. And when we looked at the stars, we felt that same need. We could not accept being alone in all that vastness. "So you screamed into the void and hoped something friendly would answer." "We hoped something would answer," Chen corrected. "Friendly or not, at least we would know. At least we would have tried." Vex Allah shook her head slowly. "My people have existed for over 20,000 years. In all that time, we never thought the way you do. We saw the universe as a battlefield, a competition for survival. We conquered because we believed it was the only way. And now." The Korath commander was quiet for a long moment. "Now I see that we were wrong. Not completely, perhaps. The universe is still dangerous. There are still threats that must be faced with strength. But there is also room for something else, for cooperation, for trust, for the kind of bonds that make life worth living." She placed a clawed hand on Chen's shoulder. "Your species taught us that. You taught the entire galaxy that there is another way to exist among the stars." The Unity's communication system crackled to life. "Director Chen, Commander Vex Allah, we are receiving a transmission from Kashar Prime. They want to speak with you directly." Chen straightened her uniform and headed for the door. "Duty calls." We have a civilization to save. The council chamber aboard the Unity was designed for exactly these situations. Holographic displays showed the faces of representatives from across known space. The Velnari trade masters, the Torgan warriors, the mysterious Sindari, and dozens of others. At the center sat the human delegation, led by Chen herself. On the main screen, the leaders of Keshar Prime appeared. They were insect-like beings with compound eyes and delicate wings. Their translator converted their clicking language into words everyone could understand. "We thank you for answering our call," the Keshari leader said. Their voice trembled with emotion. "We did not expect anyone to come. Our star is dying. Our planet will be uninhabitable within 50 cycles. We believed we would simply end." Chen leaned forward. "How many of your people need evacuation?" 800 million. But we have no ships capable of interstellar travel. We only recently developed the technology to send signals beyond our system. The numbers were staggering. 800 million beings. It would require hundreds of ships, years of coordinated effort, resources from across the galaxy. Before Chen could respond, the Velnari representative spoke. "The Trade Federation will provide transport vessels. We have surplus ships that can be converted for evacuation purposes. The Torgan will send our fleet to protect the evacuation," rumbled the massive reptilian commander. "No harm will come to the Keshari while they are under our protection. The Sindari will share our dimensional mapping technology," the being of light announced. "It will reduce the journey time significantly." One by one, every member of the council offered assistance: ships, supplies, personnel, technology. Within minutes, a comprehensive rescue plan had taken shape. The Keshari leader's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with moisture. "We do not understand. Why would you help us? We have nothing to offer. We are weak, primitive by your standards. We cannot repay this kindness." Chen smiled warmly. "You do not need to repay anything. We help because you asked. We help because we can. That is what the galaxy has become. But why? Because someone taught us that the universe does not have to be cruel." Chen glanced at Vexala, who nodded in understanding. "A long time ago, a small species on a small planet decided to reach out into the darkness. They hoped to find friends, but they were prepared to find enemies. What they found instead was the opportunity to change everything." She stood, addressing not just the Keshari, but everyone listening across space. "The old way is dead. The idea that species must compete and destroy each other, that survival requires isolation and strength alone, that asking for help is weakness. All of it is dead. We are building something new. A galaxy where every civilization matters, where distress calls are answered, where the strong protect the weak, where differences are celebrated instead of feared. It will not be perfect. There will be setbacks and failures and moments of doubt. But we will keep building because that is what sentient beings do. We create, we connect, we hope." The Keshari leader bowed their head. "Then we are grateful to be part of this new galaxy. And we hope that someday we can help others the way you have helped us." "You will," Chen assured them. "That is how it works. We help each other, and the circle grows." After the meeting ended, Chen returned to the observation deck. The stars stretched before her, countless points of light representing countless possibilities. Somewhere out there, species they had not yet met were looking up at their own skies, wondering the same questions humanity had wondered. Are we alone? Is there anyone else out there? Will anyone answer if we call? Chen hoped they would send their signals, hoped they would take the risk, reach out into the unknown, trust that the universe could be kind. Because now there was someone listening. Now there was someone who would answer. Marcus Wong, the engineer who had designed the weapon that killed the Devourer, had died 5 years ago. Before he passed, he wrote a message that had become famous across known space. Humanity's greatest achievement was not defeating the Devourer. It was not building ships or joining the Council or any technological breakthrough. Our greatest achievement was simple. We made the galaxy believe in hope again. Chen often thought about those words. Hope was fragile. It could be crushed by fear, by cynicism, by the weight of evidence suggesting it was foolish. But it was also stronger than anything else in the universe. Hope had kept humanity going through ice ages and plagues, through wars and disasters. Hope had made them look up at the stars and dream, now that hope had spread to the stars themselves. A new message appeared on Chen's communication device. Another distress signal from a system on the far edge of explored space. Another civilization facing crisis, reaching out in desperation. She did not hesitate. She forwarded the signal to the response fleet, knowing they would be on their way within hours. The SOS that shook the stars had been humanity's first message to the cosmos. But it would not be their last. Every distress call answered, every civilization saved, every bond formed between different species was a continuation of that original signal. We are here. We hear you. You are not alone. Chen watched the stars for a while longer, feeling the weight of years on her shoulders and the warmth of purpose in her heart. She had dedicated her life to this mission. She had sacrificed sleep, health, countless personal moments to build something that would outlast her, and she would do it all again because that was what humans did. They hoped, they reached out, they refused to give up, and in doing so, they had changed the universe forever. The stars continued to shine, each one a promise of new discoveries, new connections, new miracles waiting to happen. Somewhere out there, a young species was looking up at the sky and wondering. And thanks to humanity, the sky was no longer empty. It was full of friends,